August 1945. The war in the Pacific rages. But what if the bombs never fell? What if a defiant Japan, clinging to its homeland, forced a bloody invasion? A million Allied casualties? A shattered Japan? A radically different Cold War? And let's find the answer to the question, what if? Faced with imminent invasion, Japan's defense strategy would have hinged on a desperate, protracted struggle. The Home Island Defense Plan envisioned a total war, mobilizing civilians in widespread fortifications and unleashing kamikaze attacks on an unprecedented scale. Logistical challenges would have been immense, with supply lines stretched thin and attrition rates likely devastating. Simultaneously, a nationwide guerrilla campaign drawing on uniquely Japanese cultural and societal characteristics could have prolonged the conflict significantly, mirroring yet differing from other historical examples of guerrilla resistance. Crucially, any potential for negotiation would have been severely limited. With no realistic leverage, Japan's stance would likely have been one of fighting to the bitter end, even without considering the ramifications of such a decision. Operation Downfall, the planned Allied invasion of Japan, promised a bloodbath. Projected casualties dwarfed those of the atomic bombings. Some estimates predicted millions of Allied and Japanese deaths. The envisioned urban warfare, brutal street-to-street fighting in densely populated cities like Tokyo and Osaka would have been horrific. Images of firestorms, widespread destruction, and countless civilian casualties paint a grim picture. The post-invasion landscape would have been drastically different from the reality we know. A prolonged occupation, potentially more harsh and protracted than the one that actually occurred, would have reshaped Japanese society and its economy far more profoundly. The long-term effects of such devastation are difficult to imagine, extending far beyond the physical destruction. A prolonged war in the Pacific would have significantly altered the Cold War. Soviet involvement in Manchuria and the Kuril Islands might have been more aggressive, potentially expanding their influence across Asia. The absence of a US-aligned Japan would have dramatically shifted the global power balance, creating a power vacuum and weakening the US's post-war dominance. This could have led to a more multipolar world, with greater influence for the Soviet Union and possibly other regional powers like China. Furthermore, the nuclear arms race might have accelerated, driven by both sides' desire to maintain a strategic advantage in this altered geopolitical landscape. The absence of a quickly defeated Japan and the resulting focus on the Pacific conflict could have slowed, but not necessarily stopped the development and proliferation of nuclear weapons in Europe and elsewhere. A prolonged war would have left Japan economically and socially devastated. Its infrastructure, already battered by years of bombing, would have been further ravaged by an invasion, leading to widespread famine and disease. The population, having endured immense hardship, would likely have experienced significant trauma, leaving a lasting scar on its national identity and culture. Technological advancement would likely have been stunted without the post-war American aid that fueled Japan's remarkable economic recovery. Instead of becoming a global economic powerhouse, it might have remained a relatively isolated and underdeveloped nation, its global trade and political influence significantly diminished. The absence of a rapid post-war economic resurgence would have profoundly altered Japan's trajectory, potentially hindering its transformation into the modern, technologically advanced nation we know today. A prolonged war would have drastically reshaped the geopolitical map. The Soviet Union, potentially emboldened by a protracted conflict, might have expanded its influence across more of Asia, creating a very different Cold War dynamic. Existing power structures would have been challenged, leading to unpredictable alliances and rivalries. For example, China's rise could have been significantly altered, potentially hindering or accelerating its path to global influence. Ultimately, the absence of a post-war US-dominated Japan would have created a power vacuum, resulting in a vastly different global order, perhaps one characterized by increased regional conflicts and instability. The legacy of a defiant Japan, fighting to its last breath, would have fundamentally changed its national identity and its global image, potentially as a heroic symbol of resistance or a cautionary tale of unwavering militarism, depending on the perspective. A continued Japanese fight would have resulted in catastrophic losses and a drastically altered post-war world, potentially exceeding the devastation of the atomic bombings. In your opinion, what if the Japanese had refused to surrender in World War II?